This book surprised me. I mean, I expected to hear a lot of anecdotes and read a lot of anecdotes about your time, but it goes well beyond that, more than a century of stories about hockey. It's kind of like, in some ways, kind of a history of hockey at ice level.
Right.
Are you a hockey historian?
Oh, major.
Yeah?
I'm a big believer that one of the greatest things about our game is the history of it and the stories that we have about our game.
When you talk about it being our game, is it still our game, meaning Canada's game?
Oh, absolutely. It's never going to be not. I tell people this all the time. Since '72, when the Summit Series was probably the greatest hockey we ever saw, because, you know, eventually we won, and that's why we consider it to be the best hockey ever. Had we lost, we probably wouldn't be talking about it. But if you look at our players today, the game has gotten bigger worldwide, and it's gotten better worldwide. But it's amazing to me that our players in Canada are still getting better, and we still have the best group of 20 guys when we put a team together that can still dominate and win tournaments. And that's what's, I think, Canadians should look at, that we're still feeding the NHL with some of the greatest players ever.
Not only how we play the game, how successful we've been at the game, but there are people who feel that hockey, in a way, defines us as Canadians. Does it go that far?
Oh, in a lot of ways. You know, I live in California, and, you know, I don't talk a lot about hockey when I'm at home with my friends, and there's a lot of people I know that really don't understand what hockey means to Canadians, and they'll go up to Vancouver, or they'll go to Calgary or Toronto, and they'll come back and they'll say, oh my gosh, we didn't realize just how big hockey is up there. It's amazing. And I say, yeah, it's really a part of our culture. It's part of our life. Somebody said in '02 that, I don't know, 33 million Canadians, they figured that 26 million watched that gold medal game in 2002. And somebody said to me, what do you think of that? I said, what were the other 7 million doing? What was wrong with those guys?
They were working night shifts, so they had to sleep.
Yeah, that's how big. I can remember in '72 that we get out of school at noon because the games from Russia were on at like 12:30 Eastern time. And we would get out of school so we could go watch game 5, 6, 7, and 8. I mean, you don't get that for baseball or football or tennis in the United States. That's only in Canada they do something like that.
Yeah. You talk in the book about how the game's changed. And it's changed on a number of different levels. But when you just compare it to the way the game was played when you were playing, how's it changed?
I think what has changed the most is that these kids today, when I was 10 years old, I went to school at 9 o'clock and I got out at 3:30. That's what we did. And you did that every single day from September till June. And then you went and did hockey, baseball, lacrosse. Now these kids, they go to school at 8 o'clock, they get out at 11, and they're practicing from 11 till 5 at these hockey academies and these camps. But what we've lost a little bit of is playing on the pond and just going out there and using your creativity and your imagination and, you know, doing things with the puck and learning how to make funny plays and good plays and creative plays. And we've lost a little bit of that imagination and creativity that we had in the 60s and 70s and 80s.
So it's become too robotic?
It's very much more robotic because it's more systematic now. There's too much at stake, not only for obviously the NHL teams, junior teams, college teams. And if you go to a Pee Wee hockey game here in Toronto probably, these coaches are systematic now. And you play left wing, you play your position. You play right wing, you play your position. I don't know if a guy like Paul Coffey or myself, we could play in this era because our creativity would have just naturally taken over, and now the game is so systematic. Now,
you couldn't have played?
Well, these players are so big now. They're so strong. The game's better. It's not. We're not losing anything in the game with this creativity and imagination. The game is better because the players are better.
What do you say to parents today who would love their kids to be playing hockey, girls and boys? Yeah. But they say two things. They say it's just too expensive. Yeah. Can't handle the equipment costs, and it's too rough. Yeah. And I don't mind them playing in leagues where there's no hitting. Yeah. But I'm not going to let them go through the potential of serious injury, concussion, what have you.
Well, first of all, the game of hockey itself, sports in general, is great for kids. It keeps them with other kids. They learn how to work hard. They learn how to prepare. They learn what pressure is. They come to an understanding of what being unselfish means. You learn how to win and you learn how to lose. And it's all part of life. That's the real world. But I understand and I agree with parents. There's kids who love the game but don't want to be in that competitive body checking sort of game itself. Maybe we should have two leagues, one where there's hitting, one where there's non-body contact hockey. I understand that. And the size discrepancy is a big thing. You got kids at 10, 11, 12 that might be 6, 8 inches taller and bigger than other kids. It's intimidating. And kids, you know, they're normal. They're real. It hurts when you get hit. And as far as the money goes, it's a huge issue. I can remember my dad borrowing money from my grandmother to buy me a pair of skates for $25 or buy me a new hockey stick for $3.99. We couldn't even hardly afford it. And it's a big problem right now. It's so expensive. And I agree with parents who say it's just too expensive.
Do you think your parents would have been able to support you through hockey in today's world?
Probably not, you know. But I will say this. Communities are, in general, really tremendous. People will help other kids. There's charity events that help other kids. So if you really want to do it, there's ways around it. You can probably get it done. So my dad would have figured out a way to be able to accommodate me, to not just me, but my brothers too, to be able to participate. But he himself probably couldn't afford it.
One of the things that was said when you moved to LA, emotional day for you, for a lot of Canadians. But one of the things that was said was that your moving there would help grow the game in that part of the world, that part of North America. And there's lots of evidence that it did. There are teams that haven't done well in that area, but there are others that have, and they're clearly dominant over the years in terms of the Stanley Cup, especially the last few years. But when you see a kid coming out of Arizona, drafted number 1 by Toronto, what does that tell you?
Well, first of all, if you would have said that 30 years ago, nobody would have believed you. We would have all said, oh, yeah, sure. When I went to LA, I didn't really go there to say, okay, I'm going to grow hockey. I went there, I wanted to win a Stanley Cup in LA. But, you know, over those years, I was so fortunate. The group of players I was with, guys like Luc Robitaille and Kelly Rudy, Tony Granato, Marty, those guys really understood that we weren't just a normal NHL franchise. We had to get out there and sell hockey. We had to be more creative, and we had to probably market our sport a little bit more. When I got there, and I think it was '88, they had 4 high school hockey teams, and somebody told me the other day they have like 130 high school hockey teams now. And one of the things I said when I went there, there's a lot of great athletes here. Baseball, tennis, golf, basketball, football. We got to get some of those kids interested in ice hockey, because those kids, that'll get them saying to their parents, I want to go to hockey games. I want to go watch the NHL and have this vision and goal. Now, what really took it over the edge, in my estimation, was Michael Eisner used to come to all the Kings games, and he fell in love with ice hockey. His kids played, and he did a hockey movie. And out of this movie, he said, you know what, I want to have an NHL franchise. And so when the Ducks came into Anaheim, that really changed things. And for me, the very first game I played in LA was on a Saturday night exhibition game. We had 9,000 people there. We were playing the Winnipeg Jets. And I remember in the warm-up thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be a lot of work. Because in Edmonton, we sold out every game and season tickets. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? So now when I pick up a paper periodically and I'll see on a Friday night that the Ducks have 17,000 people, and I read the same paper and the Kings are at 18,000 people, we have 35, 36,000 people on the same night going to an NHL hockey game, I go, wow, this is pretty good.
You know, last time we talked 6 years ago was shortly after you got out of the Phoenix experience. Right. And I asked you about, you know, are you ever going to get back in the game? And you said you didn't see it in the foreseeable future. So here we are 6 years later, rumors always pop up. They popped up again this summer about you maybe in a front office position in Edmonton. What about the future? Do you see yourself getting back in the game at some level?
I don't know. Never's a long time, you know. Listen, I tell people all the time, everything I have in my life is the National Hockey League and the game of hockey. The money that I got to make, the people I got to meet, the stories, the memories I have, the fun that I had, the thrills I had, some of the tough times I had. It's because of hockey. But right now, you know, I have a 13-year-old in high school or grade school, and I have a 16-year-old in high school. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense for us to move at this point in time in our lives. you know, Edmonton's always been good to me. Daryl Cates and Bob Nicholson, they've always reached out and had an open hand to come around and be around and be involved. At this point in time, no, it's not part of my sort of makeup, and it's not part of what I see happening. But is it going to happen one day? Maybe. I love the game. I love everything about it. And even though you're not a player anymore, if you're involved in hockey, you have one goal, and that's to get your name on the Stanley Cup. So if you still have that passion and that dream, maybe one day it'll happen.